Welcome, everybody, to the Team Building Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Cuney. On today's show, we have the one, the only, Brett Jennings from San Jose, California. How you doing today, Brett?
I'm doing great, Andy. How are you, man?
I am doing well. For those of you who think the voice might sound just a little bit different, this is not Jeff, although we have heard many times, I've had many people come up to me and say, oh my God, I loved your podcast when you hosted so-and-so. And that tells me that they listened to the audio and didn't watch the video because they tell us Jeff and I sound a lot alike. And I'm like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah, I didn't do that one. They're like, oh, it sounded just like you. And I'm like, yeah, Jeff and I typically sound pretty similar. But I want to introduce myself. I stepped in and pinch hit for Jeff quite a few times on this. But just to give everybody a quick background of who I am. I've been with Jeff since about 2011, right? The first year that he started the real estate team. After becoming one of his top agents in 2014, I joined the role of being his success manager for the real estate team. And then after that, founded ERS with him and Kevin McGowan. And then I've been the lead coach with ERS since about 2016 up until now, and still working with ERS and doing our training and coaching on a weekly basis with them. And now we have the teamerage, right, Brett, which we're going to talk about a little bit today as well, where we have the team inside the brokerage now that we've opened up our new brokerage at KW Elite. So what I want to start in with is I want to find out all about Brett Jennings. So Brett, tell me, who are people talking to today? Give us the numbers first off. What's your market? What's your average price point? How many agents? And then give us a little background of how you got to where you are now.
Sure. Yeah. So market that we're in is, I like to affectionately call it the Garden of Eden of real estate, because we have the good fortune of having one of the highest median price points in the country. Our median price point is $1.4 million.
Nice.
Here in San Jose, Silicon Valley. Been in the business about 14 years. Started out, as a solo agent at KW. Joined a team, and then my team leader left the business the second year, and had to figure it out on my own. And then about my third or fourth year in, I started my own team. Today, I have a teamerage model, a hybrid between a team and a brokerage. I still retain my own individual team called Brett Jennings Group. Last year, we did about 130 units for $234 million. And then I have a brokerage that runs more like a team. In that we provide all the same opportunity, the marketing, lead generation systems and support that people on my team enjoy, but for higher level producers. And so inside the teamerage, we had, or mega team as a category, I think we're officially called. We ended up doing another billion in volume last year. So 800
that was billion with a B, correct?
Billion with a B. So 804 units, about $1.2 billion in sales last year.
Wow.
And I've got a team of 6, and I've got had another 50 partner agents organized into another 4 teams at the teamerage. It's called Real Estate Experts.
Okay, so I have a question there. So you said you have the agents who are at the team, or I'm sorry, the brokerage, right, or the teamerage. Right. Outside of that, you said you have about 50 agents. Is that a landing spot for those agents who start out on your team and then at some point outgrow it? Or
great question. So, it really, and as any experienced team leader will come to know, right? You typically have a life cycle of an agent on your team, especially if they're really talented and they want to grow, because they're going to want to spread their own wings, make a higher split, have their own identity. And, in the traditional brokerage model, I did not have a path to growth for them. And that was one of the things that prompted us to pivot and start the teamerage model. Was I wanted to have that opportunity, because but what was happening, right, was I'd got a guy on my team. He was a 5 to 7 year unit producer. I didn't like hiring brand new agents. I just found the predictability of success was not there for brand new people, where it was a lot more predictable. I could take a guy doing 5 to 7 units and leverage him up with leads and support and coach him and get him to 20, 30 units a year. But at the 2 to 3 year, somewhere between the 2 and 3 year mark, they'd get the itch, right? So the grass is greener and something's better. And, they'd leave the team, and then they go from doing 30 units, they do 10, more than they did before. And I talked to them, hey, do you want to do more? Yeah, I'd like to do more. Well, how come you aren't doing more? Well, I didn't have all the stuff that you guys had on the team. We had camaraderie, we had leads, we had support, And so Gary Keller was the one who inspired me, I said, Gary, what do I do here? How do I keep these people from flying the coop?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, your job as a leader is to consistently expand your world so that your best people can live out their greatest ambitions within it. Now, if you hire duds, that's easy. But if you hire studs, that's hard because those people are going to push you and force you to grow and expand your vision and your world and your universe. I'm sure much like Jeff Cohn has, and I've had to do the same. But been great benefits there. So
Yep.
It's been an exciting ride. We went from 4 years ago, a team doing 160 million in a 4-year trajectory to a mega team that did 1.2 billion last year. So I think
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I think you might know what you're doing.
I'm figuring it out the best I can, man.
Right.
But I'm a student of the business, a student of the game, a student of life. So I look for patterns. I also follow other successful people and see what they're doing, and then also follow my heart. Right. And that's, I think, one of the things we're going to talk about today.
It is. Everything that you've been saying, I just it keeps popping into my head, like the visual that you're going to share here in just a little bit for those of you that actually end up watching the podcast instead of just listening. This one might be worth it to do that. Right. So every time you bring something up, I'm like, oh, that's going to tie in well. Oh, that's going to tie in well. I'm excited to hear it. So one thing, and that's one thing that we train a lot with ERS is we always talk to these team leaders, and the issue with the team leaders is they always are upset that their agents leave them, right, for better splits or better this or better that, right? Just like you said, the grass is always greener. And I said, well, the problem is that it is our job as their team leader is not to be their ceiling, right? And too many times, because we get comfortable where we were at, right? Mm-hmm. We stopped. And what we need to do is we need to keep moving. I've lived this with Jeff, right? I became then the mega agent or whatever they call it, right? In KW language, where I got really big and it was always Jeff. And to Jeff's credit, Jeff kept moving himself up, right? And then through me would just leverage roles, right? But those leverage roles allowed me to grow and allowed me to get more opportunities that I didn't have to then go build on my own. And so that's one thing that we tell team leaders all the time is what type of ceiling are you creating for your agents, right? They always want to talk about the floor, right? Well, I'm giving them all of this. Right. That's a great floor. But what if it works? Right. Yeah. Like all the time, it's always you have 107 contingency plans on if this doesn't work. What if it does?
It does. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh, crap. And then we can't take advantage of it because we never expected it to. Right. We never trusted in ourselves. So I love it. I'm excited to hear about what you're going to talk about here in a minute.
I like what you said about, a floor and these team leaders want to be a ceiling. What you really want to be is you want to be the ladder for people. Right.
There you go.
You want to be the ladder. Don't be the floor. Don't provide the floor. Don't be the ceiling. Be the ladder.
Absolutely.
And you just have, and you will come to know, I think, right, as you probably certainly experienced, Andy, is that when you trust that what is best for the people in your world, and you try to bring as much value to them as possible, that you will be commensurately blessed with profits, abundance, and all
Absolutely.
of the like.
But it takes a while to get there. And actually some of what you're going to show is going to explain that, right? Through the life cycle is you don't just, somebody just tells you, so you believe it, right? There becomes that clarity moment where you understand it and you do it because you believe it, not because you were told. And so that's where it gets really exciting. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of let you take it away because I'm probably gonna have a lot of questions, so I might jump in. But I would love for you to start going and just kind of tell us about how you went from, because obviously, you know what I mean? You didn't just decide to just do it, right? There was failing forward. There was all of those types of things. There was learning involved, obviously. So why don't you kind of tell us what has helped you or what you've realized from your journey going from individual agent all the way to now you do 1.2 billion?
Yeah. 1.2 billion last year. Yeah. Well, I think it's a few foundational ideas to kind of lay out there that I've come to know as true as I've grown along this journey of building a business and creating a life, that I feel fortunate to live. And that is that your business grows to the extent that you do. And you cannot get away from that fact in that, it is a few things that I want to share. I'll start with this kind of framework that I use for agents in my company when I'm coaching them. And that is this roadmap of the 7 stages of a real estate business. And it kind of maps the entire journey, going from a solo producer all the way to becoming, as you might call it, an MREA model, a 7th level team leader. And I do think, and I think Jeff has mentioned this as well, the idea of being an absentee team leader is kind of a fallacy. Running a team requires you. It will, and you certainly probably can hire somebody. I do now have a team leader that I've hired, and so I've gone down this whole journey and path myself. But as agents start out, and as we coach people down this track, this roadmap, as we talk about it, is the first stage of it is a solopreneur. It's just you. And usually when people start out, and I will share this, and we'll have it as a downloadable PDF. People can check it out and map
Perfect.
to it after the podcast. But we talk about what their current situation is, what it feels like, what their transactional volume is, the team size. Commission and sales volume are probably not going to map because we have these high price points, but you can adjust this for your market. Mm-hmm. What the leverage point is, because if it's true that your business grows to the extent that you do, then your question should be, what's it going to take for me to learn, to know, to understand, to do, to get to that next level? And so we talk about what that leverage point is to bump someone to the next level, and what their goals are at each stage. So, current situation as a solopreneur, they got into real estate, but nobody showed them how to make money. Not sure, what to do to find clients and make sales. And they're wondering did I make the right move to get into real estate? And I'm sure everyone's been at that journey. So that's the transactional volumes, like 0 to 8 transactions in a year. They're typically a solopreneur, solo producer. The leverage point that they really have to master is sphere of influence and open houses. They got to get their sphere together into a CRM, start marketing themselves, get over their fear of making calls and prospecting, and start working open houses to find qualified buyers. Most of the agents that we bring into the team, and I would say, if there's newer agents, if you're looking for a path into the business, certainly teams are what I would call the fast track. I decided to get on a team my first year in the business, even though I was certainly capable of doing it on my own, because I wanted the additional experience. This is the learning. And so they're willing to do the work. They tapped their sphere as their situation, hosted open houses, but they don't really have a plan. They feel a little stuck. Their opportunity there is to really master the buyer side of the business, master the buyer listing presentations, how to get buyers into contract, max out your opportunity with online leads, and leverage those hot buyers to find sellers, deliver exceptional experience, and remember to work your sphere for referrals. We're probably a lot of people, I would imagine, who listen to this podcast are probably in the grower stage, which is the 3rd stage on the journey, and that they're good at getting clients to work with them, but can't seem to get off the roller coaster of having a good month and then a bad month. They need more listings for all these buyers they have. And what that feels like is a roller coaster.
Right. They're not in control of their business. The market is in control of their business. Yeah,
they're not yet in control of their business. And to really, they've got to get a plan together, a real solid plan, and start leveraging administrative support if they're in a team environment, whether that's transaction coordination or listing management, so that they can reclaim time. And that's what it says. The goals of that stage are to reclaim time, focus more on prospecting for sellers, possibly start a farm. Don't get comfortable. This is where agents, I think, do get stuck, right? Where they have a great month, they made more money than they've ever made before if they come from another industry, and then they slow down. But the goal is to set a goal to generate at least 2 listings a month consistently by prospecting and or farming.
I feel like at this stage, Brett, is that roller coaster stage that you're just speaking about, is they finally have enough money to leverage their time, right? To actually leverage their time. And they do that, and they do leverage their time, and so that they can have more time to do the highest income producing activities. The problem is that they don't then replace the time they leveraged with those high income producing activities.
Yeah. They take their foot off the gas, or they take that additional time and kind of coast a little bit.
Right.
And so that's the thing is to really kind of keep the foot on the gas at that stage. And sometimes people get into scarcity. Well, where they'll make the extra money and they won't invest in the leverage, and they suffer from something what I call EID. You know what EID is?
No, what is it? What's it stand for?
Entrepreneurial idiot disease. Basically,
I think I've had that at a time or two.
Yeah. I mean, 80% of real estate is like $15 to $25 an hour work.
Oh, yeah.
But if you relegate yourself to doing all that work, then you only have 20% of your time to make good money.
Exactly.
And sometimes agents get in the scarcity mindset. Oh, I don't want to pay for that, coordinator or assistant or what have you. But that's the key thing, is either getting an assistant if you're not in an environment like the Team Ridge, like the KW Elite team or ourselves that's hiring that assistant.
I think the other thing too, though, is that they hang on to those roles or those activities that are low income producing because it's almost like a safety blanket, right? It's stopping them, and they get to use that as almost like I don't have time to go out, right, and do all these extra things that would make me successful because I have to do these things. So then they just stay in their comfort zone and they don't want to fail forward.
That's the hard part, right? To go to the next level, and no matter where you are in the business, what got you to where you are won't get you to where you want to go.
Weird, huh?
Yeah. And we all have our go-tos. And even at the highest levels, I mean, I've found myself as this market's contracted to because selling a $3 million house will make me $75,000, to want to get back in production, but to resist that temptation because it's so easy for me to do it. It's not going to get me to where I really want to go.
Right.
So we move on, right, from that 17 to 25 units a year. That next stage is the hustler, and going from 25 to 40 units in production. Now they maybe are adding either an assistant or a buyer's agent. But the experience there, it feels like they're doing all the work, burning the candle at both ends. They need better systems, time management, and help delegating some of the work. And to maintain profitability at that 25 to 40 transaction stage, rather than hiring a buyer's agent, it's probably more profitable to use a showing assistant that you can pay on a per showing basis. But ultimately, you want to get all the busy work of buyers off of your plate. If it is still viable and profitable for you to write those offers and contracts and keep that profit margin, that's a good place to be. But the goal at that stage is leverage, say, virtual assistants and showing assistants, the lower cost labor, to take the busy work off and increase your focus on sellers. Invest 10% of your commission back into marketing for listings and use showing assistants to offload that work so that they can spend more time prospecting for buyers. I'm sorry, prospecting for sellers.
Yep, I agree.
Yes. So really, when you're not until you're kind of at that level of 30 to 40 transactions a year, do we really feel that you're ready to start a team. Because to start a team, you got to feed a team. And to feed them, you need enough listings through open houses and sign calls and things to start feeding those buyers agents. Can you build a buyer agent team with internet generated leads? Yes. And, as we all know, the quality of the lead will determine the velocity of your business, in the sense that, Facebook and internet leads are going to require a lot of grind to get down to those actionable bottom of the funnel buyers who are ready to transact, whereas sign calls coming off your listings or open houses are going to give you that better opportunity. So that's really at the stage where someone becomes the entrepreneur. The business is rocking, we're making money, but it feels a little unstable. I'm working harder and longer hours. Will I ever see my family again? When you're doing that 40 to 80 units and you're building the team, it is at that stage when you've leveraged the virtual assistants and the showing assistants. Now you're ready to build the team with buyers agents. Yep. And so that's the first phase of the journey. And then you're getting up to a team of about 3 to 6 agents, 40 to 80 transactions. And now you've got scalability, you've got stability in the business, it's listing based. And now you're at that stage where you can really support and build a team. And the next level is, really becoming a leader and getting yourself out of the listing side. And that is a very, very difficult journey for some people. And it depends on the type of listing presentation and the type of business you've built. And I think one of the key things there is you want to have a process built, a listing presentation and a listing system that's process-based versus personality-based.
100%.
Because
it has to be able to work without you.
Has to be able to work without you. The story that someone's got to be able to tell is compelling without you. And so that was one of the things that we had to really get clear on, was we made the listing presentation not about me, although yes, as the team leader, the value that we bring, but really about the process. So at any rate, every state.
I just wanted to say real quick, Brett, is when we get to this leader, one thing that keeps popping into my head are a couple of pitfalls. One is you've got to make sure, profitability wise, right, that when you get to this leader point where you're starting to step out of the business, that your team needs to be as profitable as you were, right? They need to be able to make you enough money that you don't need your production anymore. Because everybody always asks that question. Well, how much does my team need to make me? Because you know this, you've been to these conferences and these conventions and these award shows all across the country, and you run into these team leaders who are on stage, and they'd make more money if they didn't have their team.
Yeah.
Right? And they just sold it themselves. They just did their own sales.
And that's that's a whole nother conversation about building the right foundation, though. You're right. Like on team splits. And I learned this in the early stages of growing my team, getting about to that, grower hustler stage when I started to get some agents on the team. I think a big mistake a lot of team leaders make is they just go a 50-50 split across the board on everything. And you cannot pay out 50% of the commission, the gross commission on a listing, because by the time you factor in marketing expenses, administrative costs, and all of that, you're ending up with like 20 cents on the dollar for a listing that you generated.
Right.
And the agent's getting 50%, and then the model doesn't work, right? You can't get out of the listing side. Yep. So for that reason, our payouts on the listing side are 25% if it's a company generated lead, 35% if they've pulled the lead out of the database, and 45% if it's their own sphere of influence. But,
nice. I love that. I love actionables like that.
Yeah, at those levels, it provides enough margin. If I'm giving an agent a listing at 75 cents on the dollar, after I pay expenses, I've still got plenty of profit left. So,
and then the one other pitfall I see, and I feel like any person who wants to go to that entrepreneur/leader role, right, where they start to have a team of their own, is it should be required reading is the 5 Levels of Management. Have you read that book? I
haven't. I'm going to write it down.
Perfect.
And read it.
And so it was interesting because it was a rock star agent who's out there doing those, 25 to 40 units a year. They are a first, second, third, probably a 4th or 5th level leader when it comes to their clients, right? Those clients trust them, follow their advice, and look to them for guidance because they trust them. Right? Because they know that's their best route. What happens is those agents become so used to being a 4th or 5th level leader to their clients that they don't understand when they turn around and start to lead agents, they have to start back over at level 1, right? They are a level, whenever your audience changes, you automatically become a 1st level leader again, right? And your 1st level is situational. They have to do what I say because I'm their boss. Right. And then the next is they have to do what I say because they've seen me do it. And then the 3rd level is they do what I say because they know and they believe in it, not because I told them to. Right. And there's that next level every time. But every time you meet a new person, you have to start back over at level 1. And I feel like a lot of the people between that level 4 and 5 there that you have from hustler to entrepreneur is they forget that. And they bring the level of leadership from their clients to these agents, right? And I think that sometimes that stunts their growth, and they lose a lot of good agents at the very beginning when they're first starting out, which of course is the worst time for them because it's in the transition.
Yeah, no part of this journey is easy, that's for sure. But no, I like that, and I hear what you're saying, and it definitely is It definitely is true. That at that level, once you get 5 or 6 agents, your leadership, your two things that you're really focused on is leadership and listings.
Yep.
Just leadership and listings. And but developing your leadership skills is important, and it's uncomfortable. I remember for me, like, it wasn't that I didn't see myself as a leader, but it was foreign to me. Like I'd never led a big company or a small company for that matter. And it's all, it's all new, and it's all outside the comfort zone, but you got to just lean into it. And I remember feeling massively uncomfortable, leading teaching trainings and all of this, but you got to do the uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable.
There you go. 100%. Absolutely.
And that ultimately gets us to that last stage of the visionary here, which this is where we all want to go with our real estate business, right? Is like have the opportunity to take the time that you want to take, to have the income that you want to have, to what one of my friends said, like, best, I think, is to have the business be a vehicle to give us the time and money freedom to create magic moments with the people that we love and care about. The time and money freedom to do that. And this business can do that. But you have to grow as a person, and you get to that last level of leadership, and it's finding and hiring your replacement that can help you lead the team. And that's been the journey that I'm on, and kind of where I'm at. And Now what's interesting, Andy, is I've been coaching agents to this roadmap, for lack of a better word, for like the last 2 years. And, really it's been super helpful because people can see where they are, what the next level is, and how to get there. And I think frameworks, for what I'll call frameworks, like this is a framework, right? How to understand the different stages of a business. But their framework can be super helpful because they provide, help you take complex ideas or a whole constellation of ideas and put them in a sensible order. And one of the things when I was looking at this, outside of real estate, my personal growth journey for the last 20 years has always involved meditation. Like when coming out of college, I spent a year and traveled the world and went to India and Japan and went deep on the meditation stuff, and always felt that was a great journey. And the thing that a great augment to my personal growth, the thing that it really made me in tune with was energy. And there's another framework that I want to share with the audience here. And that is this calibrated scale of energy or consciousness. And the interesting thing was I was just intuitively got the sense, hey, you know what? I want to take another look back at this framework of the calibrated scale of energy or consciousness, because I think there's some correlation here. So what's interesting, can you see what's on the screen there, Andy?
I can.
Two charts? Yeah. So I pulled this up and I started looking at it and I said, wow, isn't that interesting? Because the roadmap on the right is colored like a rainbow, and the energy of or the emotions of human experience here on the left are colored like a rainbow. And then I said, well, let me just see if there's any correlation here to what these things are. So what you see on the left is what we call this calibrated scale of energy, emotion, or consciousness. And to give you just a high level overview of where this comes from and what it means is that ultimately everything is energy, right? We know that science has even proven this. If they get down to atomic physics and they break down, what we think is solid matter, the table I'm knocking on is made up of molecules, and which is made up of atoms, and atoms are made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And we used to think those things were solid, like little pieces of grains of sand whizzing around at really high speed. But what science has now told us is that even those what we think are like little grains of sand that make up atoms are actually just packets of energy that appear to be solid. So ultimately, at the most fundamental level, everything is energy. And this chart on the left basically maps kind of this scale of energy or consciousness. And at the very bottom is 0. And at the very top is this level of 1,000. And 1,000 is the highest kind of level of energy that a human being could embody or hold in their nervous system without blowing the circuits. So We talk about 1,000 would be like a Christ, a Buddha, whatever, somebody kind of at that level, being able to embody that level of energy. And then down at the bottom at 0 is basically there's no energy, there's nothing there, it's non-existence. What's interesting is if we look at kind of where these things, the scale, there's a couple milestones on the scale, and you'll see the teal colored bar there is where we get to what we call the level of integrity. And when I say integrity, it's not like your word is your bond, but more what I mean by integrity, or what this principle is that things have the ability to sustain themselves. Okay, they can sustain themselves, and above the level of 200, which is the energy level of integrity,
almost like a structural integrity.
A structural integrity above the level of 200, things have a tendency to evolve and grow. And to a higher level of order, a higher level of energy, a higher level of organization. It's an upward spiral, if you will. And below the level of integrity, things have a tendency to be like a downward spiral. They'll tend towards disorganization, what we call entropy or dissolution, and tend towards non-existence. And what's interesting is, if we look at where we start at in the real estate business, these different emotions, when we look down here at the bottom, one of the lowest emotions is shame, guilt, judgment, hopelessness, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. Just above pride, we get to courage, and there we are at the level of integrity. But if we ask ourselves, like, hey, where do most agents start out? Like when they first start out in the business, what do you think? What are the predominant emotions that they're feeling?
That lower group is every new agent I've ever met.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, on a good day, they're somewhere between fear and desire. Right.
Right.
On a good day, they're between fear and desire. And so what was interesting is I looked at, hey, well, how does this correlate to what we saw through the roadmap of people growing the real estate business? And as the solopreneur, that person have been just getting started, it's in the red, they're in that, and maybe, that second stage as a seeker, they're in this fear and desire. Yep. What's interesting is you can have agents that get out there, they start taking action, and I'm sure you've seen this as well. They get a little bit of success under their belt, and they get a little prideful. And there is always that, there's the age-old expression, the pride before the fall.
Oh yeah.
And that will keep them kind of in that mode. But what's interesting is, what does it take to go and get beyond that level of fear, desire, and pride, right? And if you look at this teal colored band, what it says is it's the threshold of self accountability. And I know, and what I've seen in the transformation of the agents that we work with, it's getting those agents to hold themselves accountable, and whether that's through peer accountability groups or the individual one-on-one coaching. It's that ability to admit their mistakes and hold themselves accountable that pushes them up to that next level, right? Where they can begin to see what are the things that are holding themselves back, and really go from kind of that lower level where they're kind of in the ego self, we'll call it, to get up into that place where it's positive, productive. We've got courage, neutrality, willingness. And where I find kind of what was interesting when I looked at this was an agent, their production doesn't really stabilize until they get, and they can hang out in these predominant emotional states for the most part.
It's where they get some self-awareness, right?
Exactly.
They are aware of their strengths. They're also aware of their weaknesses, and they're vulnerable enough. And it says right there, willingness, right?
Yeah.
To understand and admit those things, right? To know, where do I need to mitigate? Where do I need to accentuate? Right. And they need, with their time. And so I love, and it literally, everything on the left is an emotion that pairs up almost perfectly with one of the stages on the right.
100%. So what we see, and I think you touched on something really great, is that self-awareness. Because where does growth come from? Growth comes from awareness. And awareness of what? Awareness of our unconscious thoughts and behavior. And it just so happens that becoming aware of your unconscious thoughts and behavior happens best or happens easiest in a relationship of accountability, right? You set out to do something, Andy, you and I meet once a week. You're like, okay, did you do it? Did you not do it? Okay. Well, my question I ask is not why didn't you do it? Because why is a question of judgment. Somebody poking you in the chest. Well, why didn't you do it? Rather, a question that opens up that self-discovery is, well, what did you notice about yourself, Andy, and not following through? Right? What did you notice about yourself and not following through? Because I think what we have started to do in our environment is live into a higher definition of what is accountability. Because accountability in its best definition is the highest form of love you can show another human being.
I agree. And I think there's a push right now, at least. And of course, this always depends on your circle and your bubble that you're in, right? Because that's your focus. But I feel like there's a push to reframe the word accountability, right? Because I feel like it has been drugged through the mud, because I think it's been misused as well, right?
It's been misused. I mean, if we think about accountability in the negative, right? Where most people, it might have a negative association to accountability, where they don't want to have accountability. It probably, if you look at that chart, why or where would they not want to have accountability? It's because someone made them feel what? If you look at that chart on the left, inadequate, like shame, guilt. Okay, why didn't you do it? But if we really elevate the definition of accountability to noticing or observing without judgment.
Yep.
Because what does a great friend do to you when you're off track? They'll call you to the carpet, right? But they do it with love. I think and I think
it's a two-way street, right? You've got to give somebody the ability to hold you accountable, just like you've got to hold somebody accountable with the right intention.
100%. 100%.
This is, and real quick, Brett, because people are going to love this. Well, of course, I'm being biased because I love it, but people are going to love this, and they're going to want to know: are we going to be able to give them like a PDF of this?
Yeah, I'll share both of these, and that we can put when you post the podcast. People can do the downloads on both of these. But just to tie up, because I think like you talked about, this evolving definition of accountability is so important for both individual agents, especially if you want to become a team leader, is really how to live into that. Because I think a great example of what accountability can do at the highest level is what you see and what happens in the miracle of the 12-step work. Now, I'm not a 12-step person myself, but I have people who've been impacted by that. And if you really look at what that is, and it is transformational for people, because when you talk about love, right? Like a mom can love their alcoholic son, their brother can love him, everybody loves him and they want him to change, but the guy doesn't change. But he gets into an environment that's unconditional, right? That's non-judgmental. That is a relationship of accountability because they got a sponsor. What can really happen? And I think that's the magic that happens in accountability. So for those of you who do have teams, having that right relationship and definition of accountability can help take your business to the next level. And by that same token, until you can get up into and have your agents get up into these levels of courage, willingness, acceptance, this can-do, positive and productive energy and emotion, because everybody does have what we'll call an emotional or energetic home, meaning on the average day and the average week, where do you hang out, man? Like, where are you here?
Where's your baseline?
Where's your baseline? Because I have, you have agents who aren't quite there yet in their business that want to start a team. And if they're not at that level, of personal accountability, they just can't sustain the team. But then, I've also had the privilege and opportunity of coaching these team leaders to go past, get out of the grind and to get out of the grind themselves and hire a listing specialist and move out of production. What does it take? They have to be able to elevate and delegate. And trust, right? Their agents, their staff. And what's interesting is if you look at this chart, the next major threshold to go to the next level is the threshold of trusting. And that's what it takes to get over into the blue, into the purple. So anyway, I wanted to share that because it sets a context. When we now look at our company, I ask myself, hey, where's my agent? Like my agents on my team, where are they hanging out? And how can I help them get to the next level? Because wherever they're hanging out on a consistent basis emotionally will be the ceiling of their business. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that's.
Tell me this, Brett, because there's going to be people wanting to reach out and say, hey, yeah, how do I get a hold of Brett? I have some follow-up questions for him, or, how does somebody reach out to you? Do you have an email address or website?
I do. It is, my email is Brett@TheRealExperts. And we do have a coaching and training blog, which is bearealexpert.com. There you'll see interviews and podcasts that like just like this that I've been on, as well as interviews with agents and team leaders in our organization on how they've scaled and gone to the next level.
Perfect. I love this, Brett. This was awesome. And you're going to get us a PDF. So we'll make sure we attach it to the podcast so that anybody who's listening wants to download it and take a look at it. They can do so. And I really appreciate you being on and sharing this with us, Brett. This was a really good one. I love it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great rest of the evening, rest of the afternoon. I do want to say, anybody who's listening to the podcast, please make sure, give us a 5-star review and go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. We'd absolutely love it. And we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.